increased sharply over the last few months. And with the hike in fuel pump price and electricity tariff this month, a terrible situation is set to get astronomically worse for the poor masses. And this is barely 2 weeks to the 60th anniversary of Nigeria's flag independence. We are happy to have 4 great speakers whom I shall introduce as they are called to speak. Each panelist will have 12 minutes in the first round of discussion. The floor will then be open for questions and comments from participants. You can also send in questions or comments in the chat box throughout the discussion. During the questions and comments session, you will have to electronically raise your hand and be called to make your intervention, please. In the second round of the panelists' presentations, which will last for 6 minutes each, they will respond to your questions and speak further on the theme of discussion. The floor will then be open for your interventions once again, if we still have enough time, after which we wrap up the meeting with each speaker's final statements on the webinar. Once again, you're all welcome. And without much ado, we go into the panel discussion. Barrister Tokpe Akinyode is a human rights lawyer and the national president of the Revolutionary Lawyers Forum. Over the past couple of years, he has challenged the federal and several state governments' anti-poor policies. He has been at the barricades as much as in courts of law in the struggle for a better society. Comrade Tokpe, you are welcome. The recent hike in fuel pump price and electricity tariff, coming closely on the heels of increases in sundry taxes and charges, is a grave cause of concern to the poor masses. But the federal government says it is broke, and there's no alternative to such increases for government to provide infrastructure and social services. What is your take on this claim, Comrade Tokpe?
Good afternoon, comrades. I am very, very grateful for being around here today. To start with, I want to say that the current situation in Nigeria today is a serious source of concern for any reasonable Nigerian. Apart from the reality of the hike in electricity tariff, increment in VAT, and sundry increments, Nigeria has been rated globally as the capital of world poverty. The statistics is that over 70% of Nigerians cannot survive on the minimum of at least $1. Apart from this, the security situation of the country has continued to fall apart. And the information in the public circle is that terrorists possess more sophisticated weapons than even the security forces. And it still all boils down to how well equipped the military is and how much funds go into all of these activities. Also, during the pandemic, the Nigerian government insisted, contrary to genuine concerns by reasonable Nigerians, the federal government insisted on feeding secondary school students who were no longer in session during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the government said it spent billions of naira on these students. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo recently said that those who they gave out money to during their campaign, the 2019 campaign, are not paying back. And Nigeria doesn't even have a record of how much it has spent on those people. Now, I'm drawing these parallels to create a scenario and to establish a position. And the scenario I'm painting is a scenario of waste. It's a culture of waste that Nigeria has continued to be associated with globally. And by extension, that culture of waste has deprived Nigeria of the benefit of managing its resources effectively. So if the Nigerian government is saying that the nation's pulse is lean, we should ask the sincere question, what have they been doing with our money? I'm saying that the Buhari-led regime has largely been insensitive to the yearnings of the people and have spent so wastefully that we cannot imagine that Nigeria will not be broke. In fact, the little expenses, the reason why Nigeria is still thriving today is quite magical, considering the waste, the level of waste that this government is dedicated to. So for us, for me, we would have to break down, do an analysis breakdown of the financial expenses of the government to determine if truly Nigeria is poor. In my own perspective, Nigeria is not poor. It is the people, the Nigerian people, that are poor. The government's poor is not poor. Government continues to spend large by the day. The legislators get to buy for themselves luxury vehicles. The legislators earmark for themselves bogus sums, monetary sums as compensation for idleness, or rather compensation for wanting to gauge or restrict press freedom and human rights. Because what you find out is that the kind of legislations that this current National Assembly is embarking upon are legislations of sorrow for the Nigerian people. You are talking about the NDDC bill. You are talking about the hate speech bill that seeks to criminalize, speaking. You are talking about the social media bill that wants to restrict conversation on the social media. When even though Nigeria, is a country without a referendum provision, where largely the participation of people in governance has been dependent on social media. But despite working against the people, despite taking on activities that are unfavorable to the people, the Nigerian government has continued to spend to, enhance itself or give itself amass wealth for itself at the detriment of the welfare of the people. Last year, when the federal government insinuated first that it was going to increase the value-added tax, we made a position analyzing to the government, because the government said the reason why it wants to embark on it is because of poverty, and that more importantly, the government wanted to increase the VAT to be able to pay up the 30,000 minimum wage. As it stands today, the 30,000 minimum wage hasn't been paid. In fact, it's underpayment if it has been paid. If it has come to stay, it is even underpayment in the context of the Nigerian system, because those who contribute to the economy, the professors, youths, graduates, who work effectively to ensure that the Nigerian economy doesn't retrogress, are the ones who are paid the least. While those who don't even have, university certificates, who don't even have, some of them who forge certificates, are the ones in the National Assembly and at the end of affair amassing so much wealth to themselves. So Nigeria, is poor because the government has made it poor. I'm not even talking about the issues of diversification of the economy. I'm not even talking yet about the issues of, forex, how our foreign exchange has been made, redundant and embarrassingly retrogressive because of our, import level and the frivolities of our expenses on external products or commodities. I'm not even talking about that yet. Rather, I'm talking about the mismanagement of public funds. I'm talking about corruption in high places and the desire of the Nigerian government to ensure that it take its toll on the people. So Nigeria is not poor in the real sense of it, except that the government has taken a conscious effort and deliberate attempt to impoverish the people and make life unbearable for the masses. That's my position on the issue.
Thank you very much, comrade. And it was quite on time. I like it when panelists keep to time. And you all he pointed out some very important issues, chief of which I would say is Nigeria is not poor. It is very rich. It is the people that are poor because a few are super rich at our expense. We come to the second panelist, Dr. Chidi Wanyan. Dr. Chidi Wanyan is the AACTIB coordinator for Canada, where he has consistently organized action for Revolution Now. His Worship Media Company is one of the most viewed channels for change-seeking Nigerians at home and in the diaspora. Chidi Wanyan was also the AAC gubernatorial candidate for Enugu State in the 2019 general elections. He holds a chieftaincy title, Unabweni Nankano. You are welcome, Comrade Chidi. I hope I lived in Enugu several years back, although just for a few years. And I remember some people used to call me one of the number. So you're very much welcome, Comrade. All right. At this junction, a few years back, just quickly for the question. A few years back, as you will recall, David Cameron, who was then Prime Minister of Britain, and no saint himself, I must add, said Nigerians are fantastically corrupt. The statistics indeed are worrying. More than 600 billion US dollars has been stolen from government over the last 60 years.
Yeah.
And 200 billion of these over just the last 10 years, half of which time our Mr. Buhari, General Buhari, has been in charge. Anyway, what do you think we, the masses, can do to stop this, what Fela called authority stealing, this mass plutocracy? What do you think we can do, Comrade?
Thank you so much, comrade. Revolutionary greetings to everybody where you are. It's a pleasure to be one of the panelists. The thing is, I hope you can hear me. I hope you all can hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear, comrade. We can.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I'll go directly to your question. You said, what do you think we as a Nigerian people can do because of all the shenanigans that we've been offered since 60 years of our flag independence? Number one is that the Nigerian people need to understand the meaning of democracy. If we say we are running a democratic government, well, a democratic society is simply a society where the power that be is of the people, belongs to the people, is for the people. The government is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. But the Nigerian people don't seem to realize that. They seem to forget that during election, it was the politician that came with everything, with rice, with pepper, with onions. They knelt down. They came to you every time. They cleaned, they did everything. Who does that? It is the person who is like a servant. You are the master. They came begging on their knees. Immediately they get into power, you suddenly forget that you are the master, and you go back now to this same person. You go and hang out at their gates. You go and hang out at their offices. You clear the road for them when they are passing. So suddenly, you that is the master that is supposed to be on top of the horse, you that is the master that is supposed to be sitting on the table and have the public servant waiting on you and serving you, you suddenly allow him to now sit on that table, and you have become the servant. It is a very, very important awakening, because you see, that servant knows his right of place, but he has cunningly deceived you. And you see that place that he is sitting, the day you realize your position, you will take it back. So that's the first thing the Nigerian society needs to understand for us to be able to take charge and do what is supposed to be done. The second thing is spirituality. The Nigerian society is so spiritualized. Religion has dealt a very terrible blow on us. I don't care whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you are a traditionalist. We should go back and really understand how the people who are the founders of our different religions, how they behaved. I'm a Christian, and I tell people that if you look at the life of Jesus Christ, you see that Jesus Christ was an activist. Jesus Christ was a revolutionarist. When he came into the scene, he turned the whole place upside down. That's what they said in the Bible, that the followers of Jesus Christ who came to turn every place upside down. But people, when we tell Nigerians what they are supposed to do, the spiritual people say, no, you cannot be like that now. You have to be gentle, you have to. But the same Bible says you have to be gentle as a lamb, but then you have to be wise, and you have to strike like a serpent. So we need to go to the life of Jesus Christ. Look at when he came into the temple. When they had messed up the whole place, was he gentle and nice? When he went into the synagogues, when he went into the temple to challenge the authorities that be, was he gentle and nice? No, he argued, he confronted them, he knew the scriptures. When Jesus Christ hung out, when it was time for him to hang out, he didn't hang out with the lords, with the high and the mighty. No, he hung out with the tax collectors. He hung out with the thieves. He hung out with the with the masses. He hung out with the downtrodden. But look at the religion that we have right now. So another thing we should do is really, really figure out the real content of our religion and do the needful. Do not allow yourself to be brainwashed by religious leaders who tell you that the only way you can survive, the only way you can make it in life is just to pray from morning till night. That is absolutely wrong. The third thing, before the last, is that we need to understand tribalism. Tribalism is one concept that has been distorted in Nigeria because of the ulterior motive of the people who have held us bound for years. They have used a divide and rule technique to mess us up. So we no longer have a pride of where we come from. I live in Canada, and you know that in so many places in diaspora, people do not even know where they come from. They do not have this gift of saying, this is my fatherland, this is my village, this is where I come from. But it is something that is precious. And let me give you a definition of tribalism. So tribalism in the state is a state of being, is the state of being organized by or advocating for tribes or tribal lifestyle. Human evolution has primarily occurred in small groups as opposed to mass societies, and people naturally maintain a social network. What am I saying? I am an unapologetic Igbo man, and I say it every time. And that's why I like it when they say, "Oh, a chieftaincy title of Nabuenyi." Why am I proud of that? More than any other certificate that I've got, more than any other award that I've got, I cherish the fact that where I come from, because they say charity begins from home. My people recognize what I have done for my own community. And so from that, when I can go and speak in my community and they say, we know him, then they will follow me. And from there, I can galvanize my state. From there, I can now galvanize my nation. So instead of running away from your people, I think it is time that we identify. When you see somebody like me, if you know me very well, you know I am friends with everybody. You know that even my best friends sometimes are not found within my tribe. But it does not mean that I do not know where I come from. A lot of us have forgotten where we come from. Remember in those days, when you start behaving a certain way, somebody will call you and say, my son, I know your father. I know your people. Your people don't behave like you are behaving. Why is it that traditional marriage is more important than even the church marriage? The thing there is because they know the importance of knowing where you came from. If every one of us should understand where we come from and should have the pride of your tribe, your own people, trust me, we'll be able to interact and do whatever we are doing better. If your people, if your tribe is misbehaving, you can go down to them and say, no, the way you are treating these people is bad. The way you're behaving to these other people is bad. But because we have been taught that you can just float and not be rooted anywhere and it is okay, we have continued to float. And when we depend on this mass, that's why they can just come into us as a group, as a mass, and sell us they sell a lie to us and we believe it. I know my time is almost up. I will round up with Nigerians finally should understand activism. Activism does not mean that you should be violent. Activism is you being conscious of your environment, being conscious of your society, fighting for the rights of people. I was in a program yesterday and it was Peace Talk with Mercy. That's the title of that platform. And I told the lady that, listen, I do not want peace like Peter Tosh. I have passed that. I need equal rights and justice. That's what you should understand. That's what activism is all about. That whenever you see something bad happening, whether it be in your office, whether it be in your neighborhood, it doesn't matter whether that person is your tribe, your religion, somebody you know, woman, man, small child, that you react to it. That is why you are a human being. Comrades, if we are able to wake up to this consciousness about understanding democracy, about understanding true spirituality, you as a human being, you're already spiritual without church, mosque, or anything. Understanding your roots, who you are, and understanding the true nature of an activist and what activism means, we will be able to take back our nation from those people who have been holding it from us for ages. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Chidi. He raised a number of very important issues. There are three I would want to stress as take home also. Two of them closely interconnected. One is the place of religion. It was Majek Fashek that said it, that religion are politics. And the other is about the issue of tribalism, in quote, ethnicity. And why do I say these two are united is that, as he rightly pointed out, it is not these differences that matter. It is that a few elites play on this to divide us. That is why Bala Usman described what they do with religion and politics as the game of mask. They cannot come and tell us, because when they are together, chopping our money on boards in the Senate and all that, they don't remember that they are Igbo, they are Hausa, they are Yoruba, they are Efik, they are Tiv, they are Christian, they are Muslim, or what have you. Then they now go back to try stoke these divisions, and we should be very conscious. And he pointed out that we are the masters. The issue of democracy. To that, what I'll just add to it is about democracy from below. Separated one by one, we cannot assert that our role of the master. But collectively, with action, in unity, when we unite and fight, we put the elites in their right place. Democracy from below, revolutionary democracy from below, and that is what we stand for. We now come to our third speaker, Comrade Koforola Beckley. Comrade KB, as he is popularly called, is Secretary of the Coalition for Revolution, CORE. Kofo is a versatile journalist with vast experience in both the print and broadcast media. An active member of the Take It Back media team, she's also the convener of African Women in Take It Back, AWOTI, which, by the way, will be hosting a webinar later this evening at 5 p.m., and which I would encourage you all to join if you could, please. You are welcome, Comrade KB. Guaranteeing universal access to social services like healthcare delivery and education requires adequate funding by government. But how can working class people and radical civil society ensure that monies made available from defunding government are channeled to providing social services and not, for example, white elephant projects that glorify the regime with little impact on the lives of the poor masses? Comrade Kofo, could we have your view on this, please?
Thank you very much, Kabaye. Revolutionary greetings to all comrades in the house. Revolution!
Now!
All right, then. I'll just make this real snappy. I am kind of multitasking. So I'll just start by saying that all humans the world over require improved welfare at any time. I mean, as long as you're alive, you thirst for, an improved welfare. And so this makes social services very essential for people. They must have improved standard of living. But where social services are lacking, like we have in Nigeria, it is advisable to seek systemic change. And then, of course, we want to withdraw every form of finance that serves as instrument of legislative control. I mean, there is no reason to continue funding a central government that refuses to provide social infrastructures. A government that fails to cater for social welfare, a government that fails to create an effective healthcare system, education, that fails to provide food subsidies, a government that fails to provide efficient policing and fire services, provide job training and employment, a government that fails to promote equality and rule of law is irresponsible. We must understand that the welfare of citizens and communities must be catered for by every government. Now, to answer your question, how the working class people and radical civil society organizations ensure that monies made available from the funding government are channeled to providing social services will be largely determined by an ability to build solid collective actions of resilience. And I want to believe that that's one of the reasons why we're gathered here today. While Barrister Tokyo was making his delivery, he did mention the effects of COVID-19. And I'd just like to throw my weight behind this position now. Because the effects of COVID-19 pandemic ought to have propelled the Buhari regime to provide benefits and facilities that can help people, such people that are experiencing difficulties. When facilities like this are provided, it will help them assess, understand, and even cope with the challenges confronting them. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. At a point, people had to start crying out, people had to start agitating for provision of palliatives. Comrades, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to mute some other person busting in,
Okay.
but go on. My apologies.
Yes, I would say that the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic ought to have propelled the Buhari-led regime, to provide what we can term as benefits or facilities that can help people who, have experienced difficulties. So just kind of assess and understand to be able to cope with the challenges confronting them. Because when we talk about looting is a crime, comrades. It is theft, stealing. So if we refuse to stop the looting, our laws and civil enforcement will continue to be ineffective. And then what happens to the system? We invariably have a failed state. So the working class people and radical civil society must build a resilience-focused leadership. This becomes hellishly important. A leadership to provide clear, optimistic vision and realistic plan. The working class people must build a leadership that can take decisive actions in the face of repression. A leadership that can facilitate open, honest, and frequent communication amongst its members, even other organizations, and then, of course, to the mass population. It is important, comrades, that we have a leadership like the Coalition for Revolution that can provide up-to-date information on the provision and accessibility of social services. It is not enough to come together like this from time to time, either virtually or physically, and then we do talk, and then after it, what happens? Sometimes we have pockets of protest, some get arrested, we might even break their spirits. Some of us come back again together, then what happens? Building a resilient leadership is of utmost importance at this point. The working class people and radical civil society organizations must see it as something very, very important to have a leadership that is able to push for workers' empowerment. It is important to champion the fight for an improved standard of living. When we do this, it becomes our responsibility to monitor how the monies made available are spent. We need a leadership that can constantly seek social protection, a leadership that can fight for decent working conditions and empowerment rights, one that understands the significance of living wage rather than compromise the agitation for minimum wage. We don't need a leadership that, after so much agitation, the next thing is we begin to hear stories about seeking political positions. No. We need a leadership that can ignite the fighting spirit in the people towards demanding quality education and healthcare delivery. Remember, comrades, remember, workers have the power to take a decision to disrupt an unworkable system, a decision to force government to uphold benefits and social welfare. The working people, progressive institutions, individual activists, civil society organizations, and even coalition of movements that value democracy, that value economic growth and stability, all need to collaborate in advocating provision of social services to build impact and value. We must not allow wasteful spending of public funds on cosmetic projects that merely glorify an inept regime, having little or no impact on the lives of the poor masses. Leadership. Comrades, now is the time to rise, unite, and fight. Thank you.
Comrade Kofo, thank you very much for that brilliant delivery. She has pointed out a number of key issues. There are no two ways about it for us to make sure that monies defunded from governments or at any point in time, especially with the kind of regime that we have that does not listen to word, it's for us to unite and fight. Secondly, she points out that it is also not enough to fight. We need plan, we need agenda, we need a programmatic basis for such fights. And the last bit, which was the first she actually mentioned, and which serves as a bridge to our next presenter, is she pointed out the link between this and system change, that eventually we need system change. We now go to the final panelist, Barrister Chiemeke Onyesi. He is a lawyer, activist, and author. He was one of the active organizers in the fields of organizing popular forces rallied by Campaign for Democracy during the June 12 struggle. And he's a veteran of NANS, of the CLO, and I know he doesn't like long introductions. He said, just introduce me as a lawyer and an author. But I must also point out that he's one of the very few on the left who has captured these historic moments of the June 12 struggle in his book. June 12, it is titled June 12 Election, Campaign for Democracy and the Implosion of the Nigerian Left. This is a book I will highly recommend for all activists, not only for its historic analysis, and of course, I mean, as activists, there are issues we could debate there, but the analysis, the insight, the inspiration it gives, and with such eloquent prose, makes it a must-read for people fighting even today. Comrade Chiemeke, you are very much welcome. There are two interrelated questions I will want to ask you, please. First, some people will argue that defunding government is a reformist position. What we need is system change. Others would argue that reforms are not necessarily reformist if they are part of a revolutionary agenda. How do you see this general debate in the concrete case of Nigeria? Secondly, philosophers have interpreted the war. The point, however, is to change it. Drawing from Karl Marx's thesis on Fubak. With the recent situation in Nigeria, how do you think revolutionaries have to fight to achieve that point of system change? Comrade Chiemeke, we look forward to your incisive presentation, please. Hello? I have unmuted you, comrade. I think you can unmute yourself over there. You are unmuted here. Just click on mute on your side, please, Comrade Chiemeke.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear now.
Hello?
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. My own way of approaching this question is to, in a way, look at the history of reform. When we talk of reform today, what is the philosophical origin? Is it that reform is something that came because maybe a ruling class actually decided that, look, where we are not providing free education, for instance, that we have to do it, or that there was something that led to it? And I will background my thought with a comment by something said by Frederick Douglass, that authority consists nothing without a fight. And it is from the history of fighting that the whole idea of reforms as a social, or whether as a political philosophy or an economic policy, became apparent in the society. Reforms, even in the first place, did not occur because a particular ruling class wanted to give up anything. It was from the fact that there was an opposition pushing for an agenda different from that of the ruling class, that you get the ruling class saying, okay, we must concede A, B, C, D in order to go forward. And then also we need to look at the history of where do we take the revolution to, particularly in Europe, that led to the emergence of the idea of social democracy, which is predominant in the Scandinavian countries. So that will be my background to then say it is not that reform may not be necessary. Just as I don't want to, I'm not too much of a Christian, but I will borrow somewhere in the Bible where there is said there is no need to despise a little beginning. Whatever concession is taken from the ruling class at each given point in time, sorry, depending on who is managing it, if you ask me, it may not be a Pyrrhic victory. And I'll give an example. If you look at the history of health policy in the US in particular, I'm sure that if the Black Panthers, though nobody may acknowledge that, but I have read the history of healthcare, whether it's this recent Obamacare or so. As at 1970, there was no form of state intervention in management in the US. It was the Panthers that brought about what we will now call a reform in health management in the US. By the hello? Hello? Okay. So I'm saying that if you want, as bad as reform may be in the long run, because if in the early days of left-wing politics, particularly in the 20th century, many people will argue that reform may not be necessary. But what is with reform is who is driving the reform. And I can contextualize it with Nigeria now. For those of us who were active in the 80s and 90s and leading into the early 90s, we all know that the Education Tax Fund would not have come to be if not for the activities of Academic Staff Union of Nigeria and National Association of Nigerian Students. Because we were the ones that championed the idea that, look, government can tax multinationals and other institutions to generate extra income to fund education. But looking at it back now, what was our own strategic plan and input on how that reform in the education sector with respect to tax was going to be managed? I think for some reasons, we didn't also work on our own documents to say, okay, this is how it is going to be managed so that it does not become a new venture or a new opportunity for persons within the academic, particular tertiary institutions, to begin to make money out of the system. And we can give practical example, because for most tertiary institutions in Nigeria now, the whole idea about TED Fund has gone beyond nothing but building, setting up structural building. I don't know how much TED Fund is interested in issues like research, which is a fundamental objective of most academic institutions, not, what will I call it, not structures. I'm not saying that structures are not good, but the reason why people go to school is not to see buildings, but to be imparted in order to develop, in order for improvement in human capital development, which I think has not been achieved with such a reformist project like Education Tax Fund. And the reason that it is having problem is that it is not those who push for the reform that are even driving the reform. So even if we want a reform within the system, I also think that we must be vigilant in driving it. We must, if we push an agenda that becomes a reform program, we must not back out to see how it is implemented. That's a typical example with that one, for instance. For instance, I also know as a lawyer that there were a lot of issues about reforming the judiciary. And that was what gave birth to what we now call today the National Judicial Council, because people said there was corruption everywhere and that they needed to have a system of check to discipline judges. And the human rights group and groups that were involved in driving that agenda went to sleep. Today, Nigerian judiciary, if you ask anybody in the street, whether you are a lawyer or not, has become much more corrupt in the year 2020 compared to as it was in 1993 or 94, when National Judicial Council was set up with the aim of checking corruption within the judicial system. So it's not enough, if you ask me, to push a project for reforms without a watchdog or without a movement insisting that that reform must be implemented the way it was set out to be. Now, maybe I should go to the second question of whether philosophers have philosophers have interpreted the world. The next is to change it. Recently, I've been having a little bit doubt about this quotation that was made in Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. And my worry is that I think that the philosophers cannot finish interpreting the world. The world is a constant subject of interpretation. And the reason is simple. You know, we are forged in fires of fighting. And if that is the case, it means that every active step we take on a daily basis will also be a subject of interpretation. And we can all agree that the nature of fight, for instance, in the 80s, or the ideological battles of the 20th century is different in some sense, whether we like it or not, because imperialism, for instance, has made so much stride in forms that were different from what it was before, that nations today are also adopting to different strategy to survive. For instance, I can say that maybe 30 years back, most socialists will not look at what is happening, will not look at the Iranian regime the way they will look at it today, because what was not anticipated far back then have become subjects of discussion today. And for that, I also believe that there must be constant effort to reinterpret society. The way the class question was posed under Marx and Engels cannot be said the way it is today now. Blockchains have emerged in the commercial system that were not there. Uber is there, for instance, today. That changes the character of the worker. The worker today may not even see his employer. So I think that the philosophers should, in a way, keep on interpreting the world, because the world, for me, is a constant subject of interpretation. So that that will also guide us, for instance, what we think of reforms and revolution. Because if forces are, there are some time that in whatever we do, that we need to acknowledge that we may not be able to achieve the immediate objective. And there are reasons to also be in that kind of mood, because let's face it, the way the radical struggle is today in Nigeria, for some reasons, is not as determined as it was about 20 years ago. I may be wrong, but that is my interpretation and reading of the history of what we're in for now. So which means that we need to have some interim objectives and long-term projects that we want to achieve. But in order to achieve each, there must be a truthful assessment of our capacity for some of those projects, because it's better we maintain the gains we have achieved than to move forward without and losing what we have. I know for those of us who read Reader in the olden days, the dog with a bone, losing the bone because they saw another one with his shadow inside the water. So for me, I believe that how a reform is driven will determine how much revolutionary attachment you will have with it. Otherwise, it will become a mockery or just become a process of trying to calm processes down while the old train keep on running. I hope I'm not taking more than my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, when you see Chimike. That was an excellent presentation. As he spoke, when he talked about the academic reform thing, he stoked up nostalgia in me. My mind went to the academic reform campaign, ACAREF of National Association of Nigerian Students, which was endorsed, ratified by the Senate on the 24th of April, 1991. And why do I raise that? I think part of what we also need to point out is not to let the regime, the government, those in power, be the ones that define what we are deemed to be saying. Because the ACAREF campaign had a number of issues, including those Chiemeke raised, but the government reduced it to that we were fighting for 2,000 naira bursary, which was legitimate, of course, but it was much more than that. That having been said, I would say part of what Chiemeke does is point out clearly that the divide of revolution or reform is not a binary divide. It is a dialectical divide. It is not simply an either or thing. It is when people see reforms as the end all and be all of radical politics and thus become reformists that we have a problem of they are helping to serve the system instead of overthrowing the decadent and degenerate system of capitalism. And so I think that is important. And another thing I would want to point out with regards to his reference to the quote from the 11 theses of Karl Marx on Feuerbach is that interpreting the world is in a way similar to the issue of reform and revolution. It's not an either or thing. We cannot change the world without understanding it, and we cannot understand it without interpreting it. The problem is where people stop at interpretation. It's just like the question of the reform and revolution. The much revered Professor Escotoyo once spoke to Nigerian socialists when he joined the PRP, and a number of people said PRP was reformist, and he pointed out that, look, let us face the facts. Those that are not in the parties like the PRP, like him then, what were they doing? Nothing. Political masturbation, just chanting. And so it's about how does practice move us from the here and now on a principled basis of mobilizing for revolution from below. And without much ado, at this point in time, we will open the floor. Participants who would like to speak should please electronically raise their hands. You will have a maximum of 3 minutes to ask your question or make a comment. You can also drop questions or comments in the chat box. Comrades, the floor is open now for your questions and interventions. Um, I don't see any hands up. Okay, there's a hand up now. Moses Andrew, are you there? Your hand is up, Andrew.
I'm here. Good day, everybody. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, comrade.
Yeah, comrade. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. You see, the problems of Nigeria has been thus far analyzed by the various speakers. We pointed out so many vital issues that become generally known to every common Nigerian and to the Nigerians who are rightly thinking of a solution to our problems. We know all these problems, but my question becomes, how do we solve these problems? If we know that, like religion is one of our challenge, ethnicity, the one we call tribalism, is also part of our challenge. Deaf ears, the government has decided to turn their ears deaf towards this our challenges because they are the one who created it. And we talk about reform just by the last speaker. He was making better points, not only to struggle for something without having a structure. It means by which that structure will be used as a tool to monitor or to put in place the systematic devices whereby that structure, that struggle will not divert or will not be manipulated at the end. Now, we the revolutionaries and the revolution now core members, I strongly believe in the struggle and I'm ready to put everything within my power to make sure that we achieve this aim. But the question I have is that after we know all these challenges, why are we not putting more effort to bring in more people and to interpret black and white the real aim and objective? Yes, I want the government to be removed. This government of Barika be removed now at Turkey. I will declare. I will even declare my house. And if I don't have money to buy drinks for people, I will declare my most valuable asset for sale so that I can pay for drinks for people to rejoice. Yes. Why? Because they have nothing to offer. Now, but what are the blueprints? Because I talk to organizations, I talk to a group of people who believe in this struggle too. After you talk to them, they will ask you, what are the blueprints? I am an angry Nigerian because of the state of things, because of how things has been that everybody is analyzing today. But what are we doing? Okay, if we want to stop tribalism, these are the reform, these are the processes by which we can use to stop tribalism. Educating people online and offline is not
one of the either system we can use. Then going to streets, which we have been doing, go to joints, beer parlors, meeting with people, talking to them is another part. But systematically, what are we putting in place that we can use to head this finance, that we can use to head these challenges? Religiously, I also talk to pastors because by training, I also passed through theological school. I'm also a pastor too. But I'm angry with the system going to the street, not minding whoever that is talking or whatsoever they are talking, because some of the talk are stupidity. They don't make no sense to me. They are nonsensical. Therefore, what am I trying to say in essence? What are we doing as a body, as a movement, to make sure that this religious bigotry that the politicians have been using to manipulate the minds of the Nigerian people, what are we doing to change it, change the narrative? This is another question. So, because these are the two major tools that they are using to manipulate us when it comes to ethnicity and religion.
Well, I appreciate it, but comrade, try to so that we can take more questions.
Okay, I think I will stop here. I will stop by this.
Thank you. Very excellent questions. I'm sure the panelists will have taken note of it, but the panelists will respond. We then also have Shango. Comrade Shango, please.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello?
Go on, please. We can hear you. Go on, comrade.
Okay, yes. Thank you. And yeah, I wanted to say, basically, the question now, I think before us, as Dr. Chidi put it very well. In terms of our independence, first of all, which was always a fake independence at the very start, And secondly, the fact of the fake democracy we have been practicing for so long. And now before us is now, in effect, the people before us, the activists before us, fought for this reform. Let us call it the ultimate reform, democracy. And in a way, in terms of what Comrade Chemeke was saying, we now don't we see now that what we have, in a sense, is now obviously that reform, the people who led the fight for it, were not involved in the implementation of it, and that we have got sufficient history in our country that it is no longer a struggle for reforms at all, but a struggle for the fundamental, foundational correction of the Nigerian state or the Nigerian nation. That obviously from the very start, from the 1960s, we got it wrong. That the people were never in power, no matter what different so-called systems were in place, the people were never in power. There was never any real democracy. And we also continue to be not independent because our leaders, which is why structurally as a nation, we are ever going to be exporting raw materials to the West and structured in such a way that our system is inevitably corrupt. So now, the reason I'm saying all this is that before the Nigerian people, it has to be made very clear. We have to be clear in what we say, and we must not mislead people to believe now at this stage that reforms are going to be a solution to their problem. This is why Frantz Fanon said that hatred alone cannot form a program. And the result of doing such a thing and say people, well, the government is bad, we're angry, let us fight for this or that, is the result is that concessions will end up coming, which will weaken what you are actually fighting for. And the way with our demands has to make it clear that no matter what, it is going to be an overall. That is what we are talking about now. We are not talking about anything in between. We are not talking about any reforms right now. Of course, now we are saying defunding government, but the idea of even defunding government is a restructuring issue of restructuring the state, because there is no way these people in power are ever going to accept that their allowances, their wages, what they benefit is ever going to be taken away, and there's no way these people are ever going to commit suicide, which is what we are asking them to do. We make this demand because we know very well that it goes to the heart of what is wrong with this society. So in summary, anyway, that we think as we are bringing out a charter, the core will be releasing this charter is very important, but also the activists within core have to be with awareness that this thing that there's a program and it goes beyond one or two changes, cosmetic changes, that as a people now, we have to be thinking of the final radical restructuring, which we call system change of this country, which has been set up very at its foundation to be, a bad system for the people, but a good system for the leaders. And that goes to the heart of the fact that we are getting ready for October 1, and we have a perfect opportunity to make this, send this message to the Nigerian people, that this speaks to the fact that for 60 years we have been practicing the wrong system. It is not a matter of this or that individual is bad, because now there's so much focus on the fact that Buhari is a bad president. Well, the same Buhari came in and said Goodluck was a bad president, and he has an individual thing. So I think Nigerian people have enough evidence in front of them now to not believe the fight now is a question of reform, but it is up to us to explain these things to them properly, for us ourselves to educate ourselves exactly about what we are fighting for. That the people who are fighting, who are on the barricades, the people who are leading themselves must understand this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, VSS Shango. I don't see any other hand up at the moment. Okay, Comrade GK, Comrade Benga Komolafeko, convener of the coalition. Please. Please, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Comrade Moderator. Yes, I think very important issues have been raised by the panel of discussants. And just like VSS did, the last speaker, it's also important to put some of those issues that have come up in the course of the discussion in perspective by actually contextualizing the discourse within our contemporary realities in this country. There is one big figure that, since I discovered that big figure, I've actually been troubled in my spirit. It's published, it's contained in a report published by Oxfam International in 2017. And it is to the effect that over 20 trillion US dollars have been stolen by consecutive government people we have had. I deliberately don't want to sound too caustic, because I don't know if you can actually refer to these people as government people, as people represent. Because government is supposed to be a trust team. So a few people are there at the helms to administer society, on behalf of everybody else. And when you have a people that can loot so much resources, so it simply says that between 1960 and 2015, not even 20, we're in 2020 now, a total sum of 20 trillion US dollars have been stolen and looted by these people. And most of those monies have been filtered into Euro-American banks. I'm aware that at the end of the Second World War, the whole of Europe was in rubble. And it took just about 250 million US dollars to rebuild an entire continent from absolute rubble. And that's just a tiny fragment of the monies that a few individuals have looted away from this country. More contemporary figures are even more disquieting. Between 2013 and 2017, 4 years, they spent at 6 billion US dollars to import refined petroleum products. They shipped away crude oil and brought in refined PNS at the cost of 36 billion US dollars, which according to our experts is actually enough to build at least 5 brand new large-scale refineries. So these are kind of people we're talking about. These are people who, despite the fact that the statistics say we are now the poverty capital of the world, we have over 100 million Nigerians living below the poverty line, will still not hesitate, feel absolutely not any pang of conscience to award themselves 50 million naira salaries as senators, and even much more as governors, 36 million as House of Reps members, 1.2 million as security vote as governor. I understand that even the AFCC chief has his security votes. And when sometimes somebody was saying that AFCC should probe the use of security votes, somebody simply reminded that guy that, look, my friend, don't even go there. The AFCC chief himself has his own security votes. So
Hello? Hello. It seems we lost. GK, are you there? We might have lost him. Network issues. Anyway, you could still come and. Okay.
The fate of
We lost you. You're back now. Welcome.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So recovering this space from this gang of looters in government has become a revolutionary track. There is absolutely nothing reformist about this. This is a $1 trillion business. These guys are not going to leave any quarter. These guys are not going to give up so easily because the demands are very clear. That this resource being wasted should be rechanneled to provide, to revamp our social services that are practically in shambles. The educational system is in total shambles. And that's why organizations like HASU and the other unions in the educational sector are always on strike. Our healthcare sector is in total shambles. And that's why our doctors are
Hello. Well, I don't see any other hands
fleeing
up.
away every day.
Okay.
Trucks have become traps, so on and so forth. And that's why even the railway system left by the British colonialists cannot be maintained over the decades. So the point is that we have to reclaim this space and so that we can use our God-given resources to the benefit of our people and to achieve sustainable development. People are talking of climate change and it's impacting horribly on in our own space as well. The Lake Chad, we all know, has shrunk so much that over 36 million people around that region across about 5 countries and a large swath of northeast Nigeria are direly affected. And that likely accounts for the southward drift of millions of people who simply have no water to subsist even the most rudiments of livelihoods in that part of the country. We have a ruling elite that is not addressing that is not even concerned about that. There's an ecological fund as far back as 1991 that they have been setting aside about 3% of the budget to address this problem. But the governor simply pocket this money and waste it. And today, we are all suffering the consequences, even though some of those consequences are also being expressed in religious and ethnic terms, which brings me to the issue of religious bigotry that somebody also commented about. That, yeah, there are real issues, real problems. I just referred to the ecological issue of people having to move southwards because of climate change. And the response of our ruling elite has been to weaponize religion and ethnic and language differences to explain a very natural phenomenon. That people will drift towards where there is water and there is a little comfort. So they are weaponized in such a way that that trend, which is global anyway, is now portrayed as hey, Boko Haram is coming and so on and so forth, which is true to some extent. It's true that politicians have harmed a lot of young people that have been deprived of education, a lot of young people that have been deprived of any possibility of productive employment. Yeah, it is true that people have been actually given weapons, to commit criminalities. But it is even more true that a lot of, simple working people, harmless people, are drifting southwards because of climate change. And that's one critical issue that we also have to address outside the government.
Comrade, could you kindly round up, comrade, please?
Rounding up is to say all hands really need to be on deck. The issues confronting all of us now are beyond reforms. These guys are not going to defund. They are not going to let go. They are not going to stop the looting, except there is a fundamental overhaul of the entire structure of governance in this part of the world. And like yes, the last speaker said, we all need to step up mobilization nationally towards the October 1 day of national march against bad governance and the national march for reclaiming this space for the people of Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, comrades. Yes, I don't see any more, and presently, and we are doing relatively well within time. So I think at this point, we would want to call back the three speakers to speak for 3 to 4 minutes on what is to be done within the context of the overarching theme of the webinar and the popular anger against the fuel pump price hike. And also, essentially, we had questions from Moses Andrew. We had comments which enriched the discussion from Comrade Benga Komolafe and Shongo, which essentially point to the fact that at times, I mean, also similar to what Achemeke earlier said of determining reforms. It's also about how and the context within which particular demands are raised and what those demands are, so that some demands which might be reform are actually revolutionary, like 1917, the demand for bread, land, and freedom. You know, I mean, you say bread was what was asked in 1789 with the French Revolution. You're talking of over 100 years after. Land, the peasants were supposed to have been freed from. So it showed how some democratic demands, I mean, that's the time, that's what ties this. Democratic demands could be revolutionary, even while they claim grounds of reform. So the speakers would speak to the general, what is to be done concretely now, and also speak to the questions. The questions from Moses Andrew essentially boil down to how do we solve our challenges of the manipulation of religion and tribalism, and how do revolutionaries build lasting structures, and how do we bring more people into these organizations, into the movement for revolutionary change and the agenda for such. So at this point in time, I'll take it the reverse. We will start from Comrade Chiemeke and then to Comrade KB, Comrade Chidi, and then end with Comrade Tokwe. So now, comrades, what is to be done? And as I said earlier, also relate this to the immediate issues at hand of a fight back against the fuel pump price and electricity tariff and other sundry charges hike. What do we do? How do we build? How do we fight? Thank you. Comrade Chiemeke, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, some of us may be a little bit dim old-fashioned, but I want to go back to the 80s into the 90s that I'm very familiar with. Not that I'm not familiar with the present, but I can clearly remember that movements in the 80s were doing one particular thing. And that particular thing was that all movements had what they call political education. And the one I came from, I remember every Thursday they will select a topic called the state of, they will address what was called the state of the nation, so that cadres were kept abreast of what is happening in the country, not just the country, all over the world, whether it's religious issues, whether it was any topic I remember, for instance, being asked in one of those occasions to present a topic on what is culture. And researching it meant I have to go and read Amica Cabral, and it opened my eyes to a couple of things. So what I think, that's my observation, is that whatever skeleton of movement we have, I am not too sure we are investing effort much in political education of our cadres, because if it is the educated cadre that can lead a revolution, it is the educated cadre that can lead an organized protest, not one that is not. The education I'm talking now, let me say political education in the tradition where we are coming from. And I can clearly give an example of an incident that happened during the anti-SARS demonstration of 1989 in Benin. People brought the $2.5 billion Ebony story and said we should use it to mobilize further for the anti-SARS demonstration. And our own position was, where is the copy of the publication we are talking? They couldn't present it, and we didn't fall for it. The next thing, Tai Sholari fell for it. May God bless his soul. But what education does for a cadre is that it provides some level of sanctity of discipline. Because the worst that can happen to a cadre is to be involved in a fight, and you are discredited based on point of facts and theory of what you are discussing. So I think that for me, the way forward is that we need to go back to serious education of whatever group we belong to. Even if we invest 1 hour in a month to get our members to understand what the issues are. And the one we are used to also be very democratic, because everybody makes its input or made its input, and by that process, we are able to forge forward. So, because for us to move forward, if Bob Marley will say that if you know your history, you will know where you are coming from, which will help you to know where you are going to. I think we need to go back to trenches in terms of political education of our supporters and cadres, so that whatever effort we are putting forward, whatever foot we are putting forward, does not lead to people. Why I'm saying so is that, for instance, today now in Nigeria, the song you hear everywhere is the song of human rights activists and all manner of things. And it has become so woolly that you can't even differentiate and some of my people here we appreciate to the point I'm making, of who, in the tradition where we are coming from, who actually is a cadre. Because that will also help us even to understand what is a reform and what is a revolution. I appreciate this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chiemeke. You have raised some very key points, the centrality of political education. I can assure you definitely the different groups in CORE as well as CORE itself put great emphasis on political education, albeit despite the fact that we are in a more challenging period. We are now in a period where there's so much water, but little water to drink. If you remember where the community, there were very few bookshops where you could get revolutionary literature. You either go to, if you were in the north, the FSS, if you were down south somewhere towards Comrade Olaoni's number 6 or Deku Close, those of us in Ilorin, special bookshop, just a few places. Now, just the click of on the keyboards, people can read text that it will take us years to be able to get. But you see most people will more likely click to look at Big Brother, who is raising money for who on Big Brother and all that kind of a thing. But the fact that, I mean, you have this kind of enthusiasm for revolution, it's not ending there. And much more still has to be done. But yes, education is a central element for building an organization for revolution, because Without revolutionary theory, there can be no revolutionary movement. Comrade Kufo, Comrade KB, what is to be done? How do we unite and fight? How do we face the current issue, resistance to the hikes in prices, and also go beyond this to fight to stop the looters and defeat their system? Comrade KB, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, very simple. I'd say it again, put it up in time, and I'll be very straightforward with this. The working class people and radical civil society organizations ought to build power primarily through disruption. There is no two way to it. We need to disrupt the system. We must intensify collective actions that can effect change in this looted scale of government. We must accumulate and exercise power such that can influence a change in the system politically and economically. Comrades, we need to unite and fight to disrupt. That's it.
Straight to the point. Yeah, and that is it. We need to unite and fight, disrupt, and taking together also with what Chebeke said. I mean, it speaks to it. Comrade Chidi, what is to be done? Hello?
Okay,
right.
I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
All right. I'll try to make it simple, and I would want for people to understand what I was talking about when I was talking about organizing more in our smaller units than in the mass action. Before the mass action, you would, in a situation, if the system was okay, then we can appeal to the masses immediately. But what we have in Nigeria is a system that is already broken. It is non-existent, and we have a faulty foundation. So that's why I believe that it is important that we go back to our roots and mobilize from the ground up. So when people hear me talk about tribe, and I'm not saying go back to it and use it like the politicians use it. Note that when we want to mobilize, like during politics, we always begin to look for the smaller units. We look for the small organizations, for the town unions, for the market unions. These are organizations and their communities or ways of organizing that are very dear to people's hearts. So what I want us to see as people who are spearheading this revolution is just like the barrister had said, education, but educating ourselves, using those tools, using those platforms that people really are well connected to. You see, tribe is something that culture, lifestyle is something that people hold very dearly. So I want us to think about going down to our roots, using those things that have lasted for years, those ones that have survived any kind of breaking or mutilation. From there, as we educate people, as we galvanize them, it will now suddenly grow into something very huge. And then when we will now be able to administer those languages that appeal to the masses. But right now, there's a disconnect. So many people are saying too many different things at their small groups. We need to go down there and begin to educate them and then carry everybody along at the same time. That's what I think that we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chidikede. And Comrade Tope, what is to be done?
Comrade,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I just read the news item not too long ago where the Nigerian government is threatening that students who want to protest against the maladministration of the government will be resisted, and that the government would unleash the security agencies on them. And I find that to be very funny and sad. This because the current regime led by Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired, although has continued to display as a military dictator, even though we are in a democracy, was also in a quagmire about 10 years thereabout ago when he led a protest against the government in power as a citizen. And that was challenged by the court. And the court has since held that Nigerians have the right to troop out to protest without any license, any permit from any security agency, or to seek any approval of anybody in government, because it is a fundamental right of the citizens. But you find that that same regime that fought, against the dictatorship or against the authoritarianism or illegality of a government over the years is not the same government that is asking people, students, not to protest Nigeria. And I will tell you the reason why they feel comfortable to do so. They do so because they, in their own estimation, the Nigerian citizens are nothing to write home about. And that impression must be corrected. And the only way through which it can be corrected is to massively flood the streets in large numbers to contest or to challenge the continuous aberration in government, the unlawful, illegal activities of this government, and more importantly, the unjust and wicked policies of government that has continued to impoverish the mass. Over the years, we've had people come in splinter groups to challenge government. That must stop. There's no other way out to challenging oppressive tendencies of government other than the mass mobilizing in full force against the oppression of government. And that's why I must state it again. In the coming days, Nigeria would have to be flooded with many activities. On 1st October, Nigeria is meant to clock 60 years. And it is unfortunate that it is only in Nigeria that you have a 60-year-old entity that is languishing in backwardness as we have in Nigeria today. In Nigeria today, after 60 years of existence, Nigeria still imports toothpick. In Nigeria today, after 60 years of existence, the people cannot even feed on Gary any longer. So people have to scamper for their health, for their safety. In Abuja, the seat of power where the president sits, where there's Aso Rock, government invaded a locality just last week to abduct many citizens. Nothing has been held from about them till now. In the hometown Daura of President Muhammadu Buhari, the head of a chieftaincy, the chief of President Muhammadu Buhari's hometown, was abducted under an administration that is headed by a former military major general who promised to find a lasting solution to insecurity in Nigeria. So there is no doubt about the fact that all is not well. And the only response to this abnormality is to ensure that the people troop out in large numbers to challenge headlong the impunity government. That is the only way out.
Thank you very much, Comrade Tokwe. He has raised quite a number of important issues also, which include the need for us to challenge, the system in every way and any way, legally and what have you, even when we are in small numbers, even when we face repression. For me, one of the greatest things last year, when the Revolution Now campaign was launched, there were a lot of, how many are they going out to street? How can you be mentioning revolution? But then May this year, Justice Maureen, I've forgotten the other name, ruled that it was perfectly legal. And she even awarded a 1 million naira damage to the Nigerian that took the case to court.
Absolutely.
But it was because we dared to take. So we should not be. We need to challenge. It's like also the reference to Frederick Douglass earlier made by Chiemeke. Power never takes even a single step backwards, except in the face of demand. And what he also said, Comrade Tokwe, about the need for us all to move together. I think this is not only necessary; it is important. But reality is complicated. Often it is not because of lack of wanting to move. There has hardly been where you had everything started all at a go by. It is a good thing. It is something to work towards. Like at this current moment of what is to be done, CORE has concretely reached out to all the other coalitions that, let us fight together. Also with the trade unions on September.
Hello, I think I've lost audio.
Hello? On September 23, if I'm not mistaken,
hello.
The Trade Union Congress is organizing a protest. CORE will be part of this, and we need to, unite and fight in any and every way we can together. We have a hand up, and I'm also happy it's a woman's hand. And that is Comrade Florence Ade. Florence Ade, you have the floor to make your intervention, please.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah. Actually, I posted the question in the chat room, and I can see that Comrade Kofo responded to me. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the women's forum that you mentioned earlier.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, but permit me to also say something. I'm not a fan of Adam Soshomole. I'm a trade unionist. And sometime in 2005, we had a trade union leaders retreat. And something happened where one of the few times I agreed with Adams. What happened was that, we were looking at all the policies of the NLC, socioeconomic, trade union, labor and politics, and so on and so forth. And then no woman raised her hand. Then when we got to issue of gender equality, virtually every woman raised their hand. And we realized the systemic nature of patriarchy that contributes to this, but also, and this is a challenge, the struggle cannot be complete without women and men united in theoretical pursuit and organizing activities and practice. So I was very happy, for example, when I said, we should, as women, not on any and every issue, we must be concerned and engaged with them. And it's also one of the reasons I believe we need to do more of that, that we have ensure that in all the core public activities, webinars, everything, we never have any just only men. This thing. We are working towards at some point even ensuring this is 50-50 parity in terms of our panelists and all that. But we are very conscious about it that we will never have a solely all male panelist and what have you. So anyway, thanks for that. But we also appreciate the further engagement and processes of all processes by women as much as men, and we as men are duty bound to support this as comrades. Well, we don't have any further question. It's the first time we're finishing on time. I'm happy about that, and also that it has been very qualitative discussion. So at this point now, just one, two sentences of parting words from our panelists for us to close the meeting. We'll start now from Comrade Tokwe. A parting word, one or two sentences.
Thank you, comrades, for having me. Is there a question I need to answer?
No, there's no question. Oh, we also have another, Anene Victor Udoka Anene, please. If there is anyone that still wants to either ask a question, make an intervention, this is the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. you very, very much for this wonderful opportunity. It's an honor speaking with most of you. We have been on ground. For me, like I keep telling people at every forum, I find myself that it is personal. For me, it's a personal thing. It's my independence I'm fighting for, my independence, the independence of my generation. Now, there are things that we need to put in place for us to have an effective struggle. There are things we need to put in place. The system already, like someone was saying, has already been bastardized. So a lot of persons have lost hope in the system. We know for sure, with the show of force that the government is bringing forth, that there will be violence. I saw in a research someone that lost his eyesight during the Babangida, during the Abiola riots. And somehow in that research, I was able to find out that he has been neglected. So I would really like us to create a platform that would remember fallen heroes, because I can't assure you that there won't be fallen heroes. I can't assure you that I may not be among them. But one thing I'm saying is that we should create a platform that would remember fallen heroes, that would cater for the ones they leave behind. Because no matter how you put it, the government is going to come with a show of force. And for people like us that have said it is personal for us and there's no going back, we will not be deterred by whatever form of force we come with. So I would really appreciate if we come up with a plan in that respect. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and God bless you.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, Tokwe, you were saying something, just parting words. You could also speak to me. We have more comments, which is also fine, but just parting words, and then we wrap up the meeting. A sentence or two from all our distinguished panelists. Thank you. Comrade Tokwe, are you still there?
Yes, I am, comrade. I'm still available. I'm here.
All right. Just your parting words for now. A sentence
for me, I think it's a new dawn for Nigerians. The inefficiency of this government has thrown up an opportunity for the citizens to reposition this country. Since independence, like I alluded earlier on, that Nigeria is clocking 60 years of failed existence. The truth of the matter is that we haven't had this bad. What we have today is we have incompetence merged with a recalcitrant government, a government that despite its intensified efforts to impoverish the citizens, has also continued to jettison whatever is left of rule of law and of order. And that's why it also takes delight in disobedience to court orders, it takes delight also in violating citizens' rights, and amidst many of that things. So these issues present to us an opportunity for the people to challenge this impunity once and for all. What the government is doing is strategic. They are deliberately and systematically taking steps one after the other to mute the people from talking. And that's why you see government unleash, all sorts of, security apparatus and all, or social media wanting to arrest people. A journalist, Jola Emi, was arrested because of a WhatsApp audio. I was involved in a case where the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, was, ordered this chief of security or chief of staff or whoever to petition the Inspector General of Police and get a citizen arrested because of a social media post. As I'm talking, there is a Nigerian citizen languishing in detention of more than 6 months because of the post he made against President Muhammadu Buhari. And there are many other cases like that. The attempt of the government is to ensure that people lack the courage or the confidence to speak, to challenge this impunity, because rightly it understands that it is lacking legitimacy and popularity among the people. So, like I said earlier, these issues present a golden opportunity for Nigerians to take the bull by the horn and challenge this impunity once and for all. Because the earlier for all of us, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Tokwe. Thank you very much. Comrade Chidi Cadet, parting words.
My parting word is this. I want Nigerians to understand that, you see, all the things that they hold dear to themselves right now, they seem to have, because I'm a realist, we struggle to bring people to the streets when we are doing this protest, which is for their own benefit. But you look at the same people that you're struggling, the same people that you are struggling to bring to the streets, you go to their marriage ceremonies and you see them, thousands. You go to the even funeral services, you see them in thousands. You go to weddings, to naming ceremonies, to house openings. So there are still things in the churches, in the mosques. There are things that they still come out in large numbers to the market. But it is difficult for us to bring them out to protest because they no longer trust the system. So what I'm telling them is that there is no need to be afraid. They need to realize that nobody is taking all these things that they hold dearly to their heart, their ways of life, their roots, their traditions, their cultures. But the danger is that if we all don't bind together and get rid of this hydra-headed monster in the name of a government that we have right now, even that very thing that is dear to us in our pockets, assemblies, that too will be taken away from us shortly. So the best thing that we can do is to just, from those organizations where we are, I'm not telling you to disband, but you need to bring everybody together so that we can fight these people. When we fight them, then we'll be able to actually enjoy more all those things that mean so much to us, which we've held on to up till now. That's my parting message to Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dikede. Comrade KB, the parting words, parting message to participants, please. Comrade KB. Okay, I think she might have left. Also, she has a meeting almost immediately after this, less than an hour from now, maybe. Comrade Chiemeke, your parting words, please. It's not clear. Can you hold the mic? It's the voice is distorted. It's just a little bit better. Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
What I was saying that by way of history, that anytime that the always
No, it's distorted. We can't hear. It's very distorted. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, it's better now. Please, go on. Yeah.
I was saying that before the time the always looking at innocent and regarding the family. We also know that even God has the will to do. Otherwise, what like the people and other just looking for inside the body of people. So instead to come for a while, that's when we do so that's so let us not have the illusion that at any time we are going to do this and we go to pass. That's what I was saying, that we really can important that it's always how you always go and how you go. And maybe I also add that because we know that it's better, I think that what we do is a major business and it's not like a second party. And for that reason, we are not going to get using objects like I think we are going to what Apple and Microsoft. So that's why I think for that business because what is happening. And if they don't find out, it's discouraging them. So we must be one of the parts of our job is no part in terms of getting people to do some of these things. You can get the disappointment of the people because I reflected on some of them in my book. And we are comparing to what we will take what I know from the activity of one kind of people. So I think that if you do fair, in order to know the bottom line is keep talking about the one day. Thank you very much.
Comrade, thanks. It's very distorted, but I was trying to I was straining my ears to try here. I'm not sure, but a few things I can distill out from there. I'll say two things. One, that there should be no illusions in the struggle. It's something that is a long drawn commitment, and also not to go to a demonstration in your best suits. I can't remember, someone said something like that. So, but I mean, it wasn't very clear, but also being the parting words, I felt obliged to. It's still cracking. It's cracking. But anyway, yeah, I think so. That's why I think. But we really appreciate the inputs. No, it's not working. It's not. But thanks anyway. We really appreciate the rich and incisive contributions it to, and I can understand it's a network problem there. So we come to the end of this meeting. We're just 6 minutes behind schedule, which is a very good thing. We thank all our distinguished panelists, Tokwe Akiode, Dr. Chidike Netuwaya, Kofo Beckley, and Barrister Chiemeke Oyesi. And we thank all the participants, members of core affiliates, non-members of core affiliates, everyone that participated in this discussion. I'm seeing one or two hands up. I'm sorry now, but yeah, we now just have to wrap it up based on the schedule of the discussion already. And just a few information or announcement too. CORE is organizing, and we are happy to organize with as many other organizations, but as part of the action plan of CORE adopted by its affiliates at the plenary session in July, we are organizing a national and global protest on the 1st of October. as part of the struggle for revolution now, for system change. From this week, there will be mass leafleting across different states of the Federation. Core cadres will be engaging in the communities, in working class communities and workplaces, in mobilizing for that action. Core will also be joining the 23rd of September national protest being called by the TUC. And we enjoin all working class people in Nigeria to join this TUC protest and to march with us also on the 1st of October. We're having a second webinar in mobilization towards that on the 27th of September, which will invite all of you as well too. And the core newspaper, Revolution Now, will be launched on 1st of October. It will start circulating along with the core charter for liberation before then. But on the 1st of October, we present this to Nigerian working masses as an alternative to the for-profit anti-people system that this regime of Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired represents. A people united and determined cannot be defeated. Thank you all once again for being with us here. We march onward, forward together to revolution now and a better society. Thank you.